Hi, and welcome to English 1001. This course is called An Introduction to Literary Study, fall of 2019. It is online only. My name is Peter Paolucci, and I'm the course director. This is my information here. Email is paolucci@yorku.ca. My Skype contact is peter.paolucci. You can talk to me if you are assigned to my tutorial by Skype or by email. If it's going to be by Skype, I would suggest that you send me a note and set up a time beforehand. Before I get on to the rest of the material, including the tutorial leaders, I want to say that I am recording this talk on the eve of the fall term of 2019. Classes begin tomorrow morning. Normally, with an online course, you would be seeing somewhere in your student profile by now, you would be seeing a link to Moodle and all of this course material on Moodle. As of this evening, that has not happened. This course was a little late in being mounted by the university, but computing support has been deathly slow in getting our Moodle environment up and running, and so I have nothing to offer you on Moodle at this point. So I'm going to offer a temporary fix this evening and go through some material with you and make this material available on a website. Once Moodle is up, I will take this video and the material and move it over to Moodle. So it's going to appear in one of two places, either on a website or in Moodle. Hopefully by September the 7th, which is the weekend, this course will be available on Moodle to you, so we will keep our fingers crossed. There are 90 students enrolled in this course. 30 of them are mine. 30 of them will belong to Nazareth Smith. This is her email address here. You will be receiving very shortly an email from her welcoming you to her virtual tutorial, and she will have messages for you and other people in that particular group. The other tutorial leader is Shoili Ken. I will provide an email address, or she will provide an email address for you shortly. She is having some temporary difficulties with her email account at York. In any case, if you belong to me, then I will be the one who will be marking your papers and answering questions that you have. If you belong to Nazra, she is your contact person. If you belong to Shoili, then she is your contact person. Before I get on with some details, I just want to issue you a word of caution about online courses. And please don't take this in the wrong spirit in which I'm giving it to you, but I have a moral and ethical obligation to warn you about the pitfalls of an online course. You are sailing in very dangerous waters. It is really easy in an online course to fall behind in the readings and not to stay current. And I'm here to tell you right now, even if you fall 1 week behind in these readings, you will never catch up because you will not have enough time to let the concepts percolate in your mind. So if you think you can skip 2 or 3 weeks of watching the lectures and then go in and cram everything at the last minute, I promise you there's a 99.99999% chance that you will fail. And I don't mean borderline pass, I mean you'll crash and burn. You can't do it. You have to be on this course every week, and you have to be interactive with your tutorial leader. You have to post your responses to Moodle. You have to engage in this material, and there's nobody to really encourage you to do it as there would be if we were actually sitting down face to face. And so it's very easy to set yourself adrift from the course. And so I'm begging you now early, before this course even begins, please, please, please make sure that you commit to staying up to date every week and do not let yourself get behind. We are nominally going to say that this course meets on Thursdays. Because it's online, it doesn't really matter, except that you need to know every Thursday is the beginning of a new week of study for us. And there are 2 tests in this course, one in week 4 and one in week 12. and they will both be held on a Thursday. So it is incumbent upon you to set some time aside on Thursdays to ensure that you are refreshing the content and being aware that every Thursday there's going to be a new week of content uploaded to Moodle for you to see. All right. So, as I said, there's no Moodle at the time of recording. As soon as I finish recording this, I'm going to put all of this information up on a website, http://yorku.ca/paolucci/1001. And you will get this document, a link to this video, all of the readings that you are expected to have done get going on for this week, and links to all of my video lectures. And within the next few days, this evening is September 3rd, within the next few days you're going to be getting an email from your tutorial leader identifying which tutorial you belong to. So each week you are going to have to do some readings. I'll get to those details in a moment. And there's going to be a series of lectures that you are going to have to watch. My lectures are up on YouTube. They are broken down into chunks. So even though there's supposed to be 2 hours of lectures every week, there is no big honkin' big, 2-hour lecture. It's broken down into pieces, 15 minutes, 25 minutes, 10 minutes, all based on topic. And so every week on Thursday, you need to go to Moodle when it's up. Make sure you've got the readings done for that week. Make sure that you have watched the videos and enter into discussions with your tutorial leader. It is up to you to initiate communication with your tutorial leader. We're not going to chase you around. Now, in week 4, you are going to have a test on a prose passage that you are going to have to read. And that passage is going to be assigned to you right now in week 1. I'll say more about that in just a moment. Here's the deal. This prose passage will be unique to your particular subgroup. So different groups of people, even in the same tutorial, will be working on a different passage. It isn't a long passage of prose. They vary in length, but they're around 2,000 words. The idea is that you're going to be getting a set of tools. I call it a toolbox, but you're going to be given a set of procedures and guidelines for how you interrogate a text. And in this course, we begin with prose, and then we move to fiction, and then we move to drama, and finally we move to poetry at the end of the course in December. So we begin with prose, and in my lectures, I will be talking about what prose is, how you can analyze prose. I will be giving you some tools to analyze the examples that I provide you. But the test is not going to be on the prose that I'm talking about. It's going to be on the prose that you have to read. So you will be tested on a piece of prose that I have not talked about. The reason for this is because I want you to make sure that you can read a text, a literary text that you haven't seen before, and that you'll be able to say something literary and constructive about that text. This is going to take a lot of practice. It will not be easy the first time, but I promise you will get better and better. And you need to ride through the anxiety that this produces, because the test 2, which I believe is on the 2nd of December in this course, that test 2 is going to be a sight passage, a piece of poetry that you haven't seen before. And so I want to encourage you to practice reading a text without going to Google first, without going to Spark Notes, without going to Shmoop, or any of that bullshit that's out there that is going to damage your brain and stop you from thinking clearly about a literary text. And in the coming weeks, I'm going to show you why it's really not only an unwise idea, but a stupid idea to use these resources, because 9 times out of 10, their comprehension of a literary text is infantile and it's mistaken. So we want you to start using your brain, and that is what one of the main sort of outcomes of this particular course. All right, there are only 2 required texts that you have to purchase. One is called the Norton Introduction to Literature, the shorter version, 13th edition. Do I have it here? I have it here. It looks something like this. It is available in the bookstore now. You'll have to go into the basement of the bookstore, but you can purchase it. You need to get that right away. On the same shelf in the basement of the bookstore, there is a copy of the Norton Critical Edition of Othello. This is the one I want you to use. I don't want you to use a cheap edition. I want you to use a legitimate scholarly edition of this text, and it's the only one that is going to suffice. There is a third resource that you don't have to buy. This is available online. It's called They Say, I Say, and there's a link to it here. It is basically about the ability to align your voice with what critics have said when you write academically. So it's a very important text for helping you understand this concept of voice when you express your own opinion. Here is a breakdown of the assignments and when they're due and how you are evaluated. So test 1 is going to be assigned this Thursday. It's being assigned now. Due in week 4, which is September 26th, and returned on October the 3rd. The moment you complete test 1, you will be assigned essay 1. This will be a comparative essay between 2 short stories. That is due October 10th and returned October 24th. Then for the rest of the term, you will be at work on a major research paper with 25% of your final grade. That is going to be on Othello. And there is a 30% participation mark. I'll explain how we arrive at that momentarily. And test 2, actually I thought it was December 2nd. It looks like it's November the 28th here in week 12, which will be a closed book test on a poem that you haven't seen before. So this is the layout of how you're going to be evaluated. Here's how the participation is going to work in a little more detail. Once this Moodle environment gets working, there's going to be a bank of questions for 10 different weeks in this course, and you will need to, at least on 5 of those weeks, week 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, not during weeks 4 and 12 when we have tests, you have to respond 5 different weeks to one question only and no more. So you might take, I don't know, week 2 and week 6 and week 10 and week 8. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's say these are the 5 weeks that you are going to go to Moodle and answer a question. During those weeks, when you go to Moodle, you will see that you have a choice. It's going to be something like 3 or 4, or in some cases 5 or 6 different questions. You only need to answer one of those questions that particular week. So let me say it again a different way. There's 10 different weeks where you'll have an opportunity to go into Moodle and answer one question for that week. You need to pick 5 weeks. 6, we're not going to count the 6th one. It has to be 5 only. Those will be evaluated on a mark out of 5. So any mark between 0 to 5 for each of those. That constitutes 25%, if you do the math, of your participation mark. And there will be an additional 5% that is what we call a fudge grade, by which I mean that that is your tutorial leader's subjective assessment of how connected you were to the course. How often did you contact your tutorial leader? Did you have conversations on Skype? One-on-one conversations on Skype with your tutorial leader. That's going to be the key to your success in this course, by the way. If you do not talk to your tutorial leader, you will not do well. That other 5% will constitute the final part of this participation mark, which is worth 30%. Here are the questions that will be up for you to answer in week 1. I provided them here. As it turns out, in week 1, you have a choice of 5 different questions, only one of them. So if you want to get on board early and you decide to make week 1, the time when you're really going to sort of get down to business and answer questions, go to week 1, answer one of these questions, and you're done. Please wait until they are up in Moodle and ready to go. So here's Unit 1 on prose. This is week 1, September the 5th. These are the topics under here. 1.1 is canonicity. You have to understand what that concept is. Here is a link to my lecture on canonicity. Secondly, there is a topic called critical approaches. Here is a link to my lecture on critical approaches. Third, a topic called problems with genre. Here's a link to that lecture. Fourth, a link to something I call the 5 texts. Here's a link to that. And sixth, a video on literal and figurative language. And finally, here, a word on the OED, which is one of the most important tools you can use to analyze literature. So all of these lectures are reasonably short. You need to watch them. You're going to see here that in this column there are things you have to have read. These numbers here refer to page numbers in the Norton Introduction to Literature, so you've got to read these. I put in also a couple of extra links here to the OED, the Big Oxford English Dictionary. You have to know what that is. You will be able to access this dictionary from campus, so that's how you get to it from campus. However, if you are at home, you're going to have to access the OED this way and log in through your Passport York. There are 2 other matters of business for week 1 that you have to be aware of. There's 2 contracts that you're going to have to sign and scan and return to an email address that I'm going to provide you in just one moment. And the first is the Academic Integrity Contract. It looks like this. This is a document that explains all about what plagiarism is, what constitutes plagiarism, and your job is to watch the video on this and to read it through. And over here, with a pen, you're going to print this out and you're going to put your initials in every one of these clauses to indicate that you have read and understand what it says. And then you're going to have to print and sign and date this contract, scan it, and you're going to email it in. And I'll tell you where you're going to send it to. Excuse me. You're going to send it to Academic Integrity and the Exam Integrity. So you're going to scan them and send them into this email address, en1001@yorku.ca. And now I want you to pay very careful attention to these instructions. So print out, sign, scan, and email the Academic Integrity Contract and the Exam Integrity and Contract to en1001@yorku.ca. In the subject heading, you are going to put the surname of your tutorial leader. So it's either going to be Paolucci or Smith or Khan. Please spell it correctly. In the body of the email, you are going to put your first name and your second name and submit it. It's preferable that you include both contracts in the same email, but if you don't, that's not the end of the world. Anyways, that has to be done this week or next week. Nothing is going to be marked until you have read and signed and submitted these. If you are not sure about what the regulations say, you need to talk to your tutorial leader to find that out. Here is the schedule, as I've said, for week 1. Each week there will be a different set of readings, as you can see here, but this is what you need for week 1. And this will be available to you at that website that I talked about, which is up here, www.yorku.ca/Paolucci/1001. As soon as Moodle is up, I will move the material from here over to Moodle, and everything else on the course will be in Moodle. So I ask you to be patient. We're waiting for computing support to get this account up and running. And good luck to you. Let's have a good fall semester.